Welcome to the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. Our goal is to help you homeschool with confidence and joy. I'm your host, Matthew McDill, and our co-host today is Rhonda Marshall. Hi.
Hey,
How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. Did you forget my last name?
I just thought I'd throw it in. I didn't say it last time.
That's awesome. Well, this episode of our podcast is brought to you by Summit Ministries, where your teens learn to own their faith. So in our homeschool news today, we'll tell you about some homeschools bills that are being considered in West Virginia and Virginia. And we're also going to tell you about 2 fun field trips here in North Carolina. In our homeschool conversations, we're going to hear from 2 of our NCHE board members about required annual homeschool testing. Important topic this time of year.
Right.
In our homeschool tip of the week, for our tip this week, we are like to talk about how to avoid homeschool burnout. So we'll talk about that. And finally, our homeschool reality moment, Hope Diaz and her daughters will show us some simple and inexpensive projects that they've done at their house.
And that was inexpensive, not simple and expensive. You didn't say that. I just don't want it to sound. We're going to give you some expensive projects.
Inexpensive.
Inexpensive. Okay, so we'll start with some news, and today I want to do something different and tell you about some of the laws that are outside of North Carolina. It's really actually interesting to know what's going on in the nation of homeschooling. So we want to also give you that kind of information. This headline is from West Virginia Public Broadcasting, and the headline is Bill Reducing Homeschool Assessment Reports Passes West Virginia Senate. So I'm going to just read you a couple lines from this article. Currently, homeschool parents must provide academic assessments to their county school board at the end of grades 3, 5, 8, and 11. Senate Bill 541 would change that and require parents to submit their child's academic assessment only once. Homeschoolers would still be required to take assessments throughout the academic career, and that's kind of like we do with our annual testing.
Right.
And parents must keep records of their child's growth, which is what we do also here. But they wouldn't have to share this information with their local school board if the first assessment was deemed adequate. So this hasn't passed yet. It's been through the Senate. And so they're considering it. But what's different about our testing, of course, is that we don't ever have to turn it in.
Right.
So we enjoy that. We're glad that that's how our law is.
Yes.
Here's another headline from Virginia now. Washington Post headline. Homeschool sports bill would put ball in locals' court in Virginia. This bill would not be a statewide mandate, but instead allow local school boards to establish a policy that would permit homeschooled students to participate in their programs. 35 other states passed similar legislation. Virginia approved a similar measure in 2017, which was vetoed by former Governor Terry McAuliffe. Current Governor Glenn Youngkin supports the bill. However, it is expected to face challenges in a Senate that has a slight Democratic edge. So currently in North Carolina, we do not have legislation that allows homeschoolers to play on public school teams. And this has been, discussed from time to time, every few years or so. But that is a difference that we have. Of course, we have the NCHE Athletic Commission, and we have our own sports league. And they get to play against public school teams and private school teams. So that's
really
pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's one of the gems I think a lot of people in North Carolina don't even know about.
Yeah.
We have such a great sports organization, and
That's
it
right.
allows you to participate. Yeah. Also in this week's news, we have some field trips for you. So first we have the Marbles Museum, which is in Raleigh on March 16th. It's lots of fun, hands-on activities. NCHE has arranged a discounted admission field trip for our families that includes the IMAX Theater showing of Backyard Wilderness. And another field trip for you, North Carolina Transportation Museum in Spencer, North Carolina. This one's on Friday, March the 25th. And even if you've joined NCHE at the North Carolina Transportation Museum previously, because we've had another field trip, this field trip will offer brand new exhibits and activities. So you can go to nche.com, find the activities tab, and select field trips to find out more about both of these opportunities, or you can find the links in our show notes.
I went to the last year's Transportation Museum, took all the kids, and looked at all the trains and all the old automobiles. It was very cool, and got to take a train ride.
I love that.
It was fun.
I haven't been there in years. Before we move to Homeschool Conversations, we have a message from our sponsor, Summit Ministries.
Does God exist? Why do bad things happen to good people? Can we even know the truth? How does this give meaning to my life? Today's young adults face more challenges than ever, and at Summit Ministries, they are equipped and supported to embrace God's truth and live lives filled with purpose. The time for their faith to be strengthened is now. Give your student an unshakable faith as they prepare to graduate from high school. Get discounts, view dates, and details online at summit.org/NCHE.
Awesome. For our homeschool conversation this week, we are going to continue our discussion of required annual homeschool testing webinar. And as we mentioned before, this is the question most asked about homeschooling.
Right.
NC law requires that homeschool students are to be tested each year. We are going to show another segment from our webinar titled Required Annual Homeschool Testing. And in this clip, we're going to hear from two fantastic board members, Debbie Mason, our media director and events director, and also Amanda Wares, the helps director on our NCHE board. So let's take a look.
Now we are going to give you some of our best advice about testing from our own personal experience. So Debbie's going to start.
And I'm going to start. Amanda may say this too, because it's what we all say, but don't be stressed. Reduce the stress on taking this test. I think we've given you a lot of things about what our law says about there's no pass-fail that should help you in not being too stressed. So you don't want to be stressed, and you don't want your children to be stressed any more than they have to be taking a test. And you want to try to make this a really good experience. I mean, do special foods or take special trips or breaks in between to do fun things or whatever. But make it this is what we do. This is every year we have to do this, and so you make it fun. Now, in doing this, you're trying to reduce test anxiety, which is really common. So test anxiety can be really damaging to future test results when it matters. When they're going to take the ACT or the SAT to get into college, or they've got to take a test for a job and it's standardized, well, it can, if they have severe test anxiety, it can be a real problem. So let me say, when I say test anxiety, I mean severe, because if any of us, I don't care how chill, we go to take a test, we're probably going to have some anxiety if that test matters. From what I understand, just so you know, that a little bit of anxiety is really good. It sharpens you. It helps you to do better. You don't want to be too chill when, you're taking this important SAT and you're just kind of sitting there, you're so chill. No, you want to have some sharpening anxiety. But it's when that anxiety gets to be too much that you shut down and you can't really perform well. So in the younger years especially, to have this test be as least stressful as possible and to be a good experience is really helpful for later. As they get older and can handle that stress, and then they'll be ready. But you've set the foundation in the early years of it being less stressful. I really don't believe you should test children any younger than you have to. And in our law, because of our law, we have to test at 7. The private school law, they don't even start testing until grade 3. And that's commonly thought of, even the experts say it's better to wait till grade 3 or 4 or whatever to start giving a test like this. But we don't have that option. We have to test at 7. So just don't do it any younger than you have to. And I say wait as long as you can before they turn 8 that you give that test, so they're as old as possible. And also give a test that they're not going to be stressed out about. So if you have to start with an easier test just to give them a good experience, then do that. And then when they get more mature, then bump them up to their grade level. Make sure they understand why you're testing. What are you wanting out of this? Like, are you just doing it like I was to meet the requirements of the law? Or are you really wanting to get input on where they are and maybe what curriculum they need? They need to understand this. And in all of this, I'm hoping you won't say, I'm giving this test so you score in the 99th percentile. That might not be the best idea if you want them to not be stressed. But you explain to them why you're doing it, what you want out of it. If you're wanting help with determining their levels in their curriculum, that's to help you as a homeschooler do a better job of teaching them. Right. So they can see that this is not just about them doing well on the test. Also, I think it's really good to give them experience in testing. Because, as I said, in the future, they're going to have to do these kind of standardized tests for important reasons. So it's good that you look at this testing experience as part of your education. It's not an end in itself. It's part of their training. And that's one reason giving different kinds of tests, even if you're just using practice tests, are a good idea. I used practice tests. It's part of understanding the test. I didn't give them so my student would do better. I did it so they would be more comfortable when they set to take the test and they understood the questions and they understood how to answer them and how to fill in the bubbles, which is what we did. We didn't have the online version. I'm too old. But so you help them by practice test. And if you want to give them experience with time test, that not be the real one, get a practice test that's timed. But your practice test you can get from places like Bob Jones or Barnes & Noble, or you can probably get some online. And most of the test providers, many of them will offer you practice tests so you can get ready for the test that you're going to get from them. So I think practice tests are a really good idea to help ease the stress of the day of testing. So I think that pretty much explains. My advice is to not be too stressed and to make it a good experience, especially in the early years. And see the testing as part of their education and not an end in itself. Amanda is going to give her advice.
So this is going to echo some of what Debbie said, but I hope that tells you how important it really is. My best advice is to relax. The less stressed that you are about testing, the less stressed your children will be about testing. Remember, not everyone has the same testing ability. Often, the test results are not a reflection of that student's true knowledge or ability. Some great students are terrible test takers, and vice versa. They could be average students and great at taking tests. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it'll just be a bad day. Maybe they're having a bad day. There can be a multitude of factors that affect the outcome of those tests. So don't put that pressure on yourself of what these test results are going to be. One kind of funny example in my homeschool about you never know what these test results are going to be. We were taking our standardized test with a group, and my son was in a group with his friend. Unbeknownst to me, he and his friend made up an agreement that they were going to race through their tests. They were going to see who could finish their test the fastest. So my son, being the competitive spirit that he is, didn't even read the questions. He went through the entire test, circling in those bubbles as fast as he possibly could. Needless to say, when we got the results of those tests, they did not reflect his knowledge or ability because he didn't even read the questions. He was just racing his friend. So sometimes there's just factors out of your control that affect those test results. Test results are not a reflection of your teaching ability or of your students' learning ability necessarily. Now, you know your child. If you've been homeschooling for any length of time, you know their strengths and their weaknesses. You're going to know, most likely, what they're going to score higher on or lower on that test. So while the test can be a helpful tool to see what your child might need to work on, sometimes it just isn't. Again, like I said, because your kid decides to race his friend, or it's just a bad day that day, or like 3 of my 4 children, they have severe test anxiety and they get that test and their mind just goes blank. Ultimately, remember, this test is just to fulfill our homeschool law. I think that's really important to keep in mind. Don't put so much pressure on yourself or your children. And that's my best advice.
All right, that was Debbie Mason and Amanda Wares, who did the required annual homeschool testing webinar. They did such a good job with that webinar.
Fantastic job.
You can watch the whole thing, and you want to because they go over a lot of different kinds of tests. They talk about how to pick a test and how to test special needs children. There's so many great things in there that you're going to want to see, and you can go to nche.com/testing-webinar and sign up to see that webinar for free. And we have a great testing resources page also at nche.com/helps/testing. So check that out. You should feel totally equipped. We want you, again, to homeschool with confidence and joy. This shouldn't be something that throws you off. You should feel like, hey, I know what I'm doing here. And of course, with more experience, you'll feel more comfortable. So make sure you get those resources. So before we go to our homeschool tip of the week, we have a message from one of our sponsors.
It's testing time. Triangle Educational Assessments in Apex, North Carolina is your one-stop test shop. Their 25 years of knowledge and compassion can be trusted to help you year-round with online and paper testing. They carry the Iowa, the Woodcock-Johnson, the Stanford, the Terra Nova 2 Cat 6, and Brigant's achievement tests, also cognitive tests and practice tests. They have great prices, group discounts, so call Triangle Assessments at 877-843-8837 or visit them at triangleed.com.
Okay, so we're going to have our homeschool tip of the week. And Ron is going to tell us how to avoid homeschool burnout. And I think you picked this time period as the time.
Strategic, at
Now,
least for me.
Has this been a time of,
Maybe.
of burnout?
Not for me because I'm not homeschooling anymore. I graduated my last one. But traditionally, this time of year could be a time where I was like just trying to slog it out to the end of of it. So I want to share maybe some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. Just know that burnout is real, and everyone, especially this time of year, may feel that way. And it's okay. You're not alone.
Right.
It's not abnormal.
Normal.
That's right. So refresh. Take a teacher work day, or maybe you have to take a week. Take a break. Take a bubble bath. Get out and have a walk. Get out in nature. But just change your, refresh yourself and change your perspective. Also, reevaluate your priorities and your perspective. One thing that I found would trip me up is I want to seek to live my life with an eternal perspective, but was my nose always down in the weeds of the details of everything.
Sure.
So relationships before doing, that meant relationships with my children and my husband, even before my homeschooling. But as parents, especially if you have a certain type of personality, you can get so into checking the boxes that get lost along the way. So all those relationships, then your job of homeschooling, your home, your ministry to other, and other outside activities. Also, you may need to have different perspective. Maybe there's some subjects that you can combine with your children to make things easier. Some things you can combine, or maybe you need to keep your calendar under control a little more. Because oftentimes we're more car schooling, which is great, the opportunities that we have.
Right.
But in the process, I think a lot of especially younger moms and dads can get really burnt out about that. Most importantly, spend time alone with Jesus each day. He is for you, and he is going to be with you, and you can schedule that anytime that works in your day. Just remember, he says, "Come to me, all you that labor and are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Enlist the help of your kids and your spouses. Like if you've got a load, like sometimes at my house, this may not happen at your house, but like the kitchen table is a wreck because, we've been running or doing, and just ask them to share the load with you, with chores, with helping getting anything that's a pain, what I call a pain point, that's bothering you, whether it be my desk, that sometimes could be an avalanche,
Right.
or things like that. As I said, keep your calendar under control. You need some white space in your life so that you don't feel that burnout. One thing that I did weekly was I had it like an appointment day. This was the day we would do appointments because I tried to limit so I didn't feel, and maybe it was just my personality.
Appointments like out of the house appointments?
Yes.
Okay.
So that I felt like that's the day we would go out primarily rather than having it scattered throughout all the week and then feeling frazzled about that.
So you don't have a bunch of days broken up by trips and stuff.
So you can feel more successful and get things done. Also, this is super important. Stay or get connected with real life homeschool parents, whether you're a mom or a dad. You need that in-person support. Be real with one another. Maybe even be accountability partners if you're struggling with homeschooling and struggling with burnout. I think it's really important that we be vulnerable and share hearts so people can pray for us. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes you just need a little help.
If one person will admit that burnout is real or that they're coming to the end of their rope, most of the time everybody else is like, me too, you know.
Yes.
And then you can talk about it, and then you can talk through it, talk solutions, support each other.
Yes, exactly. I so agree. And also think about, don't neglect your most important relationship outside of God is the one with your husband or wife. So try to plan a weekly date night. That will be refreshing to you as a mom or a dad. And it's really important for the strength and wholeness of your marriage. So even if you have to have a dinner after the kids go to bed, just try to plan a weekly date night for your sanity and for everybody else's. But I just want to say it takes a ruthless commitment to first things first. We live in a constant tension between the urgent and the important. And the problem is that the truly important tasks rarely must be done today or even this week. Just know that God knows you, your spouse, your children. He knows your circumstances and your struggles, and he loves you and has a unique plan for your homeschooling to finish the year well. I love Ephesians 2:10, for we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. So he's going to help you get through the burnout.
Absolutely. And that's your rest and your peace, to know he loves you, he knows you, he can help you.
That's right.
And take a bath. My mom takes a bath every day.
Yay.
When I grew up, bubble bath every day.
Yay, Mom.
Now I know why. I didn't know. I was like, what are you doing? You're clean. It wasn't about being clean, was it? Okay, now I know.
Love it. I love your mom. The stories of your mom.
All right, we have a homeschool reality moment today from Hope Diaz. She and her two daughters will show us some simple, inexpensive projects they've done and give us some explanation in Spanish. Let's see this.
Love it.
Hi, this is a quick homeschool moment, and we're going to talk about some things that we've been doing the last few weeks. Some simple things we could do, especially we've had some sickness in the house. Vamos a hablar hoy sobre unas cosas sencillas que se puede hacer en su casa, en su homeschool, que utiliza cosas sencillas que tal vez tiene ya en su casa. So this is all some things that's probably around your house or very inexpensive things. Girls, can you show your snakes? Muestren los serpientes, the snakes. And we've been talking a lot about how snakes move. We got these really neat snakes at the Dollar Tree. Compramos esas serpientes en la tienda del dólar. Y también la pintura compramos también. This paint that we got here, everything you can buy at the Dollar Tree. We bought some brushes. They weren't so great, but we got some other brushes that we had from Walmart. Show the volcano project that we did. Marcelo Volcano? This volcano basically is made from a pizza box and crushed up scraps of school papers, flour, and water. Lo hicimos ese volcán con un cartón de pizza y papel, harina, agua, pintura. Anna, what else did we learn about? Let me see your snake, Anna.
We learned about making pink.
making pink.
It's red and white.
It's red and white. Aprendimos cómo hacer rosado con rojo y blanco, right? Rojo y blanco. And we're able to, this is good for us to practice some Spanish vocabulary when we're mixing colors. Right, Anna? Rojo y blanco. Thank you. Have a good day. Que tengan un buen día. Bye. Bye, girls.
Bye. Bye.
Hope for sending that in. It's always fun to be in someone's house and see what's going on. I especially liked that this was an opportunity for her to speak Spanish. She's teaching her kids Spanish.
I love that.
A multicultural moment. And as you know, NCHE's been making a special effort to reach and serve multicultural families. And so I want to remind you again that you can go to nche.com/multicultural homeschooling. We have 2 new multicultural liaisons. One is a Spanish speaker, and she wants to help. So if that's something that's interesting to you, something that would be helpful to you, then you'll want to check that out. Don't forget also, you can go to nche.com/upload-reality-moment if you would like to send in your video.
Yes, please send them in. And thanks for joining us this week. We'd love to hear from you. Send your questions or your feedback to the Homeschool Show at nche.com.
That's right. And be sure to subscribe and follow on podcast and YouTube. And until next week, continue to homeschool with confidence and joy.